When will this age come to an end? When will the last week come? According to the plain words and revelation in the Bible, the coming of the last week is related to the following few things: Antichrist and the restored Roman Empire, the restoration of Israel including the rebuilding of the temple, the great tribulation, and the rapture of the saints. Matthew 24:3 says, "And as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us, what is the sign of your coming and of the consummation of the age?" In his reply in the succeeding verses, the Lord first spoke concerning Antichrist. This shows us that before the consummation of the age, Antichrist must appear. He will play a leading role in the last week. Revelation 13:1 points out that the beast, which signifies Antichrist, will come up out of the Mediterranean Sea. This beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads of the beast are the 7 Caesars of the Roman Empire. Antichrist, the 7th Caesar, will come from one of the Gentile nations around the Mediterranean Sea. He will have the support of the 10 kings, and they will unite to form a great empire, which will be the revived Roman Empire. He will make a covenant with Israel for 7 years and permit them to freely worship God. After 3.5 years, Antichrist will be slain temporarily. Then the spirit of the 5th Caesar, Nero, of the Roman Empire will come up out of the abyss and enter into the dead body of Antichrist to resurrect him to be the 8th Caesar. Antichrist will break the covenant and begin to persecute the Israelites and the Christians. He will also set up his image in the temple. Antichrist will be the Caesar of the revived Roman Empire. Once he makes a 7-year covenant with Israel, that will be the beginning of the last week. Today, this last week is not yet manifested because the Roman Empire is not yet revived. But as we observe the world situation, it seems that the restoration of the Roman Empire will take place soon. In the previous years, we all have seen the great change in the world situation, a change that is beyond our imagination. In Matthew 24, the Lord gave us a clear revelation concerning the restoration of Israel. In verse 32, the Lord said, "But learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and put forth its leaves, you know that the summer is near." To the saints, the fig tree is a sign of the consummation of the age. In Matthew 21:19, during his last visit to Jerusalem, the Lord Jesus cursed a fig tree because he could not find any fruit on it. The fig tree is a symbol of the nation of Israel. In AD 70, Titus the Roman prince brought with him a great army to destroy Jerusalem and the temple, as prophesied by the Lord when he said, "A stone shall by no means be left upon a stone which shall not be thrown down." From that time, the children of Israel were scattered among the nations. Not only did their nation fall, but even their homeland was lost. Humanly speaking, there was truly no hope for the nation of Israel to be reformed. However, the Bible contains a prophecy saying that one day the cursed and dried up fig tree would become tender and forth leaves. On May 14, 1948, the day of the British Mandate expired, the new Jewish state, the State of Israel, was formally established in Paris of what was known as the British Mandate for Palestine. With the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, Jewish independence was restored after 2,000 years.
על יסוד החלטת 10 האומות המאוחדות אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל.
Then, after another 19 years, in 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel seized Jerusalem. That was the fig tree putting forth leaves. Concerning the rebuilding of the temple, first we need to see the 2 halves of the last week. The last week will be cut into 2 halves by Antichrist abolishing of the 7-year covenant he will make with Israel. In the first 3.5 years, Antichrist will support the children of Israel, permitting them to freely worship God. In the latter 3.5 years, Antichrist will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. and replace them with an idol of himself. In Matthew 24:15, the holy place in which Antichrist's image will stand refers to the sanctuary within the temple, and the abomination refers to the image of Antichrist as an idol. In other words, the idol will remain in the temple for 3.5 years until Christ will destroy Antichrist by the manifestation of his coming. Therefore, first the temple will have to be rebuilt. Then the children of Israel will be able to worship God and offer sacrifices to Him, and Antichrist will be able to set up his image. Since AD 70, when Titus destroyed the temple has never been rebuilt. Israel has regained Jerusalem and actively making preparation for the rebuilding of the temple. All the materials that will be needed for the rebuilding of the temple and all the utensils needed for the sacrifices have been prepared according to what is recorded in the Bible. Now they are waiting for the suitable time to come, and the rebuilding of the temple will be completed. The second half of the last week, the last 3.5 years of this age, is a period of the Great Tribulation, such as has not occurred from the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall be. This period will begin with the supernatural calamities in the sixth seal of the seven seals, and will end at the seventh bowl of the seven bowls. It will be the hour of trial which is about to come on the whole inhabited earth, to try them who dwells on the earth. Great tribulation will come from three directions: from God, from Antichrist, and from Satan, upon all those dwelling on the face of all the earth. At that time, God will judge the entire universe with supernatural calamities, so that the earth will not be suitable for man's existence. Furthermore, Satan will be cast out of heaven to the earth by the overcomers, and knowing that he has a short time, he will collaborate with Antichrist, and the two will do their best to destroy and injure the human race, and they will severely persecute the Jews and the Christians. However, for the preservation of His people, God will limit the time of the Great Tribulation to only 3.5 years, otherwise no flesh would be saved. Before the Great Tribulation, the overcomers will be raptured, leaving the majority of the believers, those who are not yet mature, on the earth to pass through the Great Tribulation. Matthew 24:40-41 says, "Then shall 2 men be in the field, one is taken and one is left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, one is taken and one is left." This indicates that while the worldly people are befuddled by material things, with no sense of the coming judgment, some of the sober and watchful believers will be taken away. At that time, the earth will become a place that is terribly unsuitable for man's living. The supernatural calamities and Antichrist persecution will cause the believers on earth to suffer great afflictions, but God will keep and nourish them. At the end of the Great Tribulation, the majority of the believers, including the resurrected ones and the remaining ones, will be raptured to the air at the Lord's coming. Then Christ will suddenly appear in an open way to the earth, like the flashing of the lightning. These are the signs of Christ's coming and of the consummation of the age. Although concerning that day and hour no one knows, the year can be figured out. Therefore, we should take heed to ourselves, lest at some time our hearts be weighed down with debauchery and drunkenness and the anxieties of life, and we miss the rapture and become like Lot's wife. We need to be watchful and ready that we may prevail to escape all these things which are about to take place, and to stand before the Son of Man.